What's happening, people? Back with another reaction, back with some more Sinead O'Connor, and we're getting close to the end of the 1992 album Am I Not Your Girl, though indeed I wanted to ask, given that the next track is an instrumental of one we already heard earlier on the album, I was curious if folks think I should just go ahead to the next album. I, of course, like jazz music, so an instrumental version of Don't Cry For Me Argentina would be interesting to me, but again, given that I've already reacted to it and that we won't hear Sinead's vocals on it, I'm curious what you folks think, so just give me your opinion below. But regardless, we do have one more proper tune on the album, which is Scarlet Ribbons. It's a phrase I feel like I've seen or heard before. That doesn't necessarily mean I know any original version of this, or a version, going back decades, but yeah, for some reason the phrase sounds familiar, so there's a possibility that I am aware of another version of the song. In any case, it certainly gives a visual image, but as to what it might mean in the context of a narrative or a visual scene, I can't quite hypothesize in advance, so let's just give it a listen. This is Sinead O'Connor and a performance of a song called Scarlet Ribbons, and it's from her 1992 album Am I Not Your Girl?
I peeked in to say goodnight, and I heard my child in prayer, and for me some scarlet ribbons, scarlet ribbons for my hair. All the stores were closed and shuttered. All the streets were dark and bare. In our town, no scarlet ribbons, scarlet ribbons for her hair. Through the night, my heart was aching. Just before the dawn was breaking, I peeped in, and on her pillow, lying there, lovely ribbons, scarlet ribbons, scarlet ribbons for her hair. If I live to be 100, I will never know from where came those ribbons, scarlet ribbons, scarlet ribbons for her.
Incredible. Where do I start? I'll start sonically. Obviously, the first, or like most of the tune, is not quite a cappella. There definitely was some Celtic music accompaniment before we got to that final instrumental flourish at the end with the pipes, which really resonated and struck me strongly. But yes, okay, so number one, most of the tune, or the whole tune, has a Celtic flavor, although again, the first like three quarters or even four fifths of the track is in a very minimal arrangement in that regard and almost comes across as a pure a cappella tune, but I guess with a Celtic flavor with, there's like a flute and I think there's maybe one or two other elements, but her vocal performance is remarkable because at different times it's, I won't say powerful. She's not like belting or anything, but there's a lot of force behind her vocals. Like it's very loud, not in a bad way, but it's very striking, but it's also very vulnerable and emotional. And it sounded like at times she was almost breaking into tears. More on that in a minute when I mention the lyrics. But also like it felt very natural. Like I've talked about in the Tori Amos deep dive, where there's a number of songs where you can like hear her lips, you can hear her like swallow, and it's like it's very human because it sounds like they didn't do like post production where they're like editing out the sounds of her like forming the word sounds, like shaping the sounds with her mouth, or you can hear her breathe, or like catch her breath and make sounds like with her lips or tongue. It's the same thing here where there's moments where like you'd think maybe they would edit that out, but it gives it a more human and like intimate, like a personal quality, leaving them in, so she sounds very just like in the vocal spotlight, very vulnerable even. And given what I caught of the lyrics, like the idea that like right as morning is breaking, she's looking into her child's room and she's seeing her child pray while like lying on her pillow, and maybe there were a couple different moments, like maybe I'm combining a couple different things along the way of what's happening, but yeah, it sounds like she's peeking in to see her daughter praying, and sort of in her bed, like as the sky, like the stars are like dissipating or something and the morning is coming, but scarlet ribbons in her hair. And like suddenly as I heard that, I was like, oh, like have I reacted? I don't think I've reacted to a tune by this name by somebody else, but I do think I've reacted to a song where it talks about scarlet ribbons being in someone's hair. Either way, it sounds like she's saying she could live to the age of 100 and she still wouldn't know where they came from. So that makes me wonder, where did they come from, and what does it mean for them to be in her hair? And as I said, it sounds like she's like very emotional. Now, of course, I have an understanding that some of Sinead's songs are, if not autobiographical directly, certainly like playing off of her own experience with her children and so on, although also like speaking about her mother. So maybe she's like extrapolating, the feeling of her own life into this song, which given its presence on this album, I'm expecting she did not write. And given the sonic flavoring of this one, maybe this is like a folk Celtic tune that maybe has particular emotional resonance for her even if she didn't write it. So yeah, it sets a scene, though I don't quite know how to interpret the scene, given that number one, there seem to be a couple different things happening, and number two, it's likely a song she didn't write, and given the sonic flavoring, maybe it's like a Celtic standard. Either way, I love the last section where the pipes come in. And look, I'm a very small percentage Irish, but I do have a bit of Irish heritage, technically like Norman Irish, because it's Fitzgerald, and they weren't like an old Irish family, they were an Irish family that came over like after 1066, I think like in the 12th century, but over time, they assimilated and became more Irish in their cultural behavior and so on. So I don't know if that has anything to do with the way in which Celtic music, pipe music, Celtic flutes and so on, they really do like, make me have an emotional reaction, and that happened in the last section of this track where I can just see like, an Irish scene or a Scottish scene, like I know this is probably more likely Irish specifically, but it just really hit me powerfully after a song that was already incredible. So a remarkable tune, absolutely loved it. As I said, let me know if I should react to the instrumental of Don't Cry For Me Argentina or try to move on. Once again, shout out to all the folks involved in this deep dive. Let me know what you think, and I will see you for the next one, whatever that may be. Peace.